You know that moment when you promise yourself, this week, everything will be different? It's Sunday night. Your desk is covered with plans, a brand new calendar, maybe even a mug of tea for good luck. There's something satisfying about starting the week with a list, and, honestly, maybe a hint of self-sabotage too. Here's the interesting thing, no matter how much we plan, time always seems to slip away, doesn't it? Before you know it, it's already Wednesday, and that epic Sunday list, it just becomes a reminder of everything you didn't have time to do. People might tell you it's your fault, lack of discipline, laziness, poor time management. But what if the real problem isn't actually you? What if the real villain is time itself? Today, I want to show you why everything you've been told about time is wrong. And don't worry, I'm not going to get overly philosophical, just enough to make Sherlock Holmes proud. Stick around until the end, because there's one detail about how time works against you that almost no one ever notices. Curious? I am too. For centuries, we've been taught to see time as something linear. Just like those old history lessons, the 17th century, the 18th, the 19th. Time marching forward, unstoppable. But is our experience of time really just a straight line? If you've ever felt that 5 minutes waiting in a queue lasts forever, but 2 hours with friends fly by, congratulations, you've already proved that time isn't as linear as we think. It's not just me saying this. In 1955, Alan Watts talked about the illusion of time, arguing that we're always stuck between past and future and almost never notice the present. Funny, isn't it? The more you worry about time, the less you actually feel you have. You know that saying, time flies when you're having fun? It's real, and there's a scientific explanation. When you're truly engaged, your brain releases dopamine, and your sense of time changes. Now, try doing an expense report on a Friday afternoon. It's basically torture. 5 minutes can feel like 50. This reveals something most people don't consider. Our experience of time is personal, emotional, and deeply shaped by context. It starts to become clear that time management might actually be the biggest myth of modern life. Ever tried filling every minute of your day, believing that's what productivity is? As if you could control time like a pocket watch? Even Sherlock Holmes never quite managed to control time, and he was a master of efficiency. But don't lose hope. Soon, I'll show you why time always seems to slip away and what you can actually do about it. No magic formulas, but maybe a solution less obvious than you might expect. By the way, have you noticed that the harder you try to control time, the more it seems to slip away? In the next part, I'll tell you about a fascinating experiment that proves why packed schedules don't always mean more productivity and how time loves to play with our expectations. Have you ever tried to be that ultra-organized person with endless lists, alarms for every task, and a schedule for every minute? Filling up every slot feels like the answer at first, but it usually just adds more stress and leaves you feeling worse when you can't get everything done. Here's the curious part: the more you try to master time, the more it seems to slip through your fingers. Like sand on a windy beach, the harder you squeeze, the faster it escapes. There's a classic study that shows the more packed your schedule, the more likely you are to procrastinate on the important things. You know that feeling at the end of the day where you've ticked off loads of tasks, but the really essential job got left behind? You're not alone. That's called occupational procrastination, the art of looking busy without actually getting anywhere. And here's the paradox: the way productivity is sold today doesn't really solve the problem of time, it just hides it. It's not just a modern thing. Feeling like you're always chasing time has been part of the human experience for centuries. Every generation seems to think they invented modern stress. The truth is, as you try to be more efficient, your brain is actually fighting a flood of decisions. Every tiny choice, from what to wear to which emails to answer, drains your mental energy. By the time you get to the day's most important task, guess what? Your battery's already running on empty. That explains why that report gets left for tomorrow, or why your dream of learning a language keeps getting postponed to someday. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just time, once again, playing tricks. Or, as Virginia Woolf put it, life is not a series of lamps symmetrically arranged. Life is a luminous halo, a semi-transparent envelope surrounding us from the beginning of consciousness to the end. Time is that halo, not always logical, not always predictable. So, is there any way out of this cycle of endless lists and never enough time? In the next part, I'll show you how your habits, especially the invisible ones, have more power over time than any productivity app. A recent survey found that 70% of people feel they don't control their own time, even with all the modern technology. Are you part of that group? Have you noticed that time doesn't just disappear on big tasks? Most of it vanishes in tiny actions, so automatic you barely notice. There's even a name for this: micro habits. They're those invisible habits, the little autopilot detours that, when you add them up, turn into whole hours. Checking email for the fifth time in half an hour. Scrolling the news while making coffee. Looking through Instagram just for 2 minutes. One study found that the average adult checks their phone over 100 times a day and usually isn't even sure why. That feeling of losing time without even realizing it. It's these hidden patterns. It's like time is slipping under the door while you think you're in control, and you don't need to feel guilty. The brain is wired to save energy, always choosing the path of least resistance. Those mental shortcuts kept us alive for thousands of years. But with notifications, fast internet, and apps designed to steal our focus, these shortcuts have become modern traps. The funniest part, you can spend all day being busy without actually doing anything important. Classic busy, but not productive. And at the end of the day, you're exhausted and somehow feel like you wasted your time. And there's more. When an invisible habit turns into a routine, it gets so automatic that it doesn't even register. That's why, so often, we only notice wasted time when we look back. As Sherlock Holmes might say, what's invisible isn't always harmless. Here's the good news: if invisible habits steal your time, conscious ones can give it back. But don't worry, it's not about willpower, but about designing your environment. Next, I'll show you how small changes to your environment, not to yourself, can make time work for you. There's a simple trick, tested by psychologists, that could save you hours every week. Stick with me. You'll find out soon enough. You've probably heard that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, your time is also the average of the environments you spend it in. Think about your home, your workplace, even your route to the shop. Your environment almost always invisible shapes how and how much time you actually use. And, strange as it sounds, different environments make you use time in completely different ways. There's a classic experiment to groups. 2 types of rooms. The first, a tidy desk, no visual distractions, phone out of reach. The second, a messy desk, open books, phone right there, snacks on the table. The tidy group was, on average, 40% faster at completing tasks and felt less tired by the end. The researchers' conclusion was simple: when your environment helps you focus, your time stretches further. When it invites distraction, time just evaporates. Now think about your day. How often do you keep your phone beside you while trying to focus? Or leave endless apps open while you're supposed to be working on something important? The brain loves shortcuts. Leave snacks on your desk. You'll eat them. Leave your phone nearby. Your fingers unlock it on their own. It's not about willpower, it's about what's easy. That's why people who seem to be time masters don't actually have more discipline, they just have fewer temptations around. It works for everything. People who read a lot usually leave books in sight. People who exercise every day leave their kit ready to go. People who avoid distractions simply hide what tempts them. When you design your environment, you design the flow of your time. It's like creating small currents that pull you, effortlessly, in the right direction. Here's a simple trick before bed. Leave out the object for your next action. Running shoes by the door. Book open on your pillow. Notepad in the center of your desk. That way, your environment does the work and time stops being just your problem. Next, let's talk about the perfectionism trap. Why trying to control time completely can actually leave you more stuck. This is where the real plot twist comes in. At some point, we've all wished for total control over our time. The dream of scheduling every hour, every minute, as if you could predict it all, from traffic to mood, from weather to random group messages. The thing hardly anyone realizes is that time perfectionism is an invitation to silent failure. Why? Because life, by its nature, is unpredictable. You can't schedule inspiration, creativity, or a great idea that appears while you're waiting for the bus in the rain. In fact, research shows that people who try to plan absolutely everything have higher anxiety, feel less accomplished, and, ironically, feel like they're wasting time even more. Chasing perfection turns time management into a cycle of guilt. Everything falls off schedule: a delay, a surprise, an extra cup of tea. It feels like failure. And here's the paradox: the more you try to control, the more time slips away. It's like trying to catch water with your hands. That's why some of the most creative minds embraced a bit of improvisation. Some wrote by walking in the garden, waiting for time to bring them ideas, not their schedules. Some solved problems lying on the floor, staring at the ceiling, with No rush at all. The secret isn't total control. It's creating space for the unexpected, for productive boredom, for those ideas that only appear when you're not watching the clock. Perfectionism only makes time seem more like your enemy. And self-compassion might just be your best ally in the silent battle. In the next part, we'll talk about the value of intelligent idleness and how, often, it's in the pauses that time really pays off. And there's a practical tip that most productivity gurus won't tell you, but it might just change your days. If there's something life teaches us, it's the value of a good pause. A break for a cup of tea or simply a quiet moment in the middle of a busy day. There's a quiet wisdom. Time isn't just made of action, but of intervals. Studies show that professionals who take regular breaks are 25% more productive than those who work straight through. Intelligent idleness is the space where creativity appears. It's that aimless walk, reading without pressure, daydreaming at the window. Some of the best writers created their greatest scenes after long walks. Outdoors, when your mind slows down, your brain connects ideas that were far apart. That famous eureka, in the bath, or the solution to an old problem while you're absent-mindedly sweeping the kitchen. But don't confuse intelligent idleness with passive procrastination. The difference is intention. Intelligent idleness is a chosen pause, space for the mind to breathe and sort priorities. Here's a practical exercise. Set aside 15 minutes a day to do nothing. Absolutely nothing. No phone, no TV, no music. Just sit and observe. It might feel odd at first, but soon you'll see the best ideas, and even solutions for lost time, often appear when you let go of the rush. As one philosopher said, the time you enjoy wasting is not wasted time. Maybe the problem isn't time itself, but our hurry to fill it with anything. Next, you'll see how tiny everyday choices, almost invisible, shape your relationship with time over the years. And yes, there's a trick many writers use to stop time and create more without hurrying. Have you ever thought about how many decisions you make each day? Researchers say it's more than 35,000 choices, many so small you barely notice. And that's where time hides. Every micro choice, getting up or staying in bed, tea or coffee, replying now or later, draws an invisible map for your day. Your brain loves to repeat familiar shortcuts. That's why habits form automatic paths, and, without noticing, you hand over your time to old routines, and the tiniest choices can add up to massive effects over time. Big changes come from tiny actions, repeated every day. A classic example: swap 10 minutes of scrolling social media for 10 minutes reading a book every day, and that adds up to almost 60 hours of reading a year. But in the moment, it feels like nothing. And here's the trick from the great writers I mentioned. Many of them had daily little rituals: a walk, a cup of tea, a few minutes of quiet observation that became sources of inspiration and productivity. The magic is turning micro choices into micro wins. Instead of looking for a huge leap, try small shifts that fit your routine, and together, they'll rewrite your relationship with time. If you want to stop time, start noticing your autopilot choices. That might just be where your real power is. Next, I'll show you how to build anchor habits, small daily actions that help you hold on to the present and live with more intention and less guilt. And yes, there's a real story of a poet who changed his life with a 3-minute-a-day habit. If there's an underrated secret about time, it's this: the people who seem to handle time best don't control every minute, they anchor themselves in the present. What's an anchor habit? It's a simple action, chosen and repeated every day, that acts as a kind of starting point, a ritual that tells your brain, from here, the day begins or begins again. It might be writing one line in a notebook, stretching by the window, or making a cup of tea before starting work. Some writers would walk for just a few minutes every morning before writing. Others would start their day by reading a single page, or looking out at the world in silence. Why does this work? Because living in the present isn't some mystical state, it's a habit you practice. Every time you repeat an anchor habit, you create a mental path that makes it easier to appreciate the moment, instead of getting trapped in the abstract time of anxiety. And the smaller the habit, the easier it is to keep. There's wisdom in the old saying, less is more. Here's a challenge: choose one simple action, something that makes you pause. Repeat it every day, at the same time if possible. Don't expect immediate results. Just notice, little by little, how time starts to feel more like an ally than an enemy. Now, let's tie everything together: how to think, feel, and act around time even in the busiest weeks. And yes, there's a practical trick to help